In the twilight years of the 15th century, Europe stood on the cusp of monumental change. The Renaissance, a rebirth of art and intellect, swept across the continent, bringing with it a wave of innovation that challenged the medieval world's foundation. Amidst this whirlwind of change emerged a figure who had come to embody the paradoxes of this era, Rodrigo Borgia, later known as Pope Alexander VI. His ascent to the pinnacle of spiritual power is a tale not just of ambition, but of a family's unyielding quest for dominance in a world where faith and power were inextricably linked. Rodrigo was born in 1431 in the Kingdom of Valencia, part of the Crown of Aragon, into the illustrious Borgia family. His lineage was one of nobility and influence. But it was not merely by birthright that Rodrigo charted his course to the papacy. It was through a combination of cunning, charm, and a profound understanding of the ecclesiastical and political chessboard of his time. The young Borgia's journey began under the tutelage of his uncle, Alonso de Borgia, himself a cardinal of the Roman Catholic Church, and later Pope Calixtus. This familial connection provided Rodrigo with an invaluable entry into the ecclesiastical hierarchy, but it was his own innate talents that propelled him forward. Educated in the law at the University of Bologna, Rodrigo developed a keen mind for canon and civil law, a skill that would serve him well in the complex legalistic environment of the Church. Rodrigo's rise was meteoric. His uncle's papacy paved the way for his accumulation of church offices, each accompanied by a lucrative income and increased influence. By the age of 25, Rodrigo had been appointed Cardinal Deacon of San Nicola in Carceri, a remarkable achievement for one so young. His ascent continued through a series of strategic ecclesiastical appointments, culminating in his role as Vice-Chancellor of the Church, a position he held for an unprecedented 35 years. It was a role that granted him not only significant administrative control, but also unparalleled access to the papal court and its intricate network of alliances and enmities. Rodrigo Borgia was a man of his time, embodying the Renaissance's contradictions. His intellect and appreciation for the arts were matched only by his ambition and the moral flexibility that would become a hallmark of his papacy. He was a patron of scholars and artists, yet his name would become synonymous with the era's darker undercurrents: nepotism, simony, and the manipulation of spiritual authority for personal gain. The conclave of 1492, which would elevate Rodrigo Borgia to the papacy, was a spectacle of political manoeuvring. The death of Pope Innocent VIII opened the golden gates of opportunity, and Rodrigo, with decades of preparation, was poised to seize it. The whispers of bribery, of promises made in shadowed corridors, have long fueled rumours about the legitimacy of his election. Yet, in an age where the lines between the temporal and the spiritual were blurred, Rodrigo's ascent to the papacy can also be seen as a masterstroke of political acumen. Upon taking the name Alexander VI, he stepped into the role with a vision that was as grandiose as it was fraught with controversy. The new pope was acutely aware of the challenges that lay ahead. The Italian states were a mosaic of competing interests, and the papal states themselves were threatened by external powers and internal strife. Alexander's strategy was clear: to consolidate his power, ensure the survival of the papal states, and, above all, secure the legacy and dominance of the Borgia name. To achieve these ends, Alexander wielded the most potent weapon in his arsenal. His family, his children Cesare, Juan, Lucrezia, and Joffre, would become pawns in a grand strategy aimed at intertwining the Borgia family's fortunes with those of the most powerful states of Italy and beyond. Through marriages, alliances, and, when necessary, ruthless machinations, Rodrigo sought to lay the foundations of a dynasty that would endure beyond his papacy. The path Rodrigo Borgia carved through the landscape of Renaissance Europe was marked by brilliance and shadow, His rise to the papacy was not merely a personal triumph, but a reflection of an era where the sacred and the profane were interwoven, where ambition could clothe itself in the vestments of piety, and where a man could ascend to the spiritual summit of the Christian world and gaze down upon it, not as a shepherd, but as a sovereign in his own right. As we delve deeper into the life and reign of Pope Alexander VI, we are confronted with a narrative that challenges our notions of villainy and virtue. His story is a testament to the complexity of human nature and the indelible mark that one man, armed with unyielding ambition and intellect, can leave on the tapestry of history. The conclave of 1492, a gathering shrouded in secrecy and intrigue, was to decide the fate of Christendom's spiritual leadership. In the opulent yet foreboding halls of the Vatican, the College of Cardinals convened to elect a new pope. It was a time of great uncertainty and division, with the Church at a crossroads, buffeted by external threats and internal corruption. Into this maelstrom stepped Rodrigo Borgia, a man whose ambition had been honed over decades within the Church's echelons of power. His eyes were set on the papal throne, the ultimate prize for a lifetime of ecclesiastical manoeuvring. Rodrigo's journey to this pivotal moment was marked by strategic brilliance and an uncanny ability to navigate the treacherous waters of church politics. He was a cardinal of considerable repute, known for his lavish lifestyle, sharp intellect, and, not least, his vast network of alliances. But the path to the papacy was not to be a straightforward one. The conclave was divided, with factions supporting different candidates, each backed by powerful European states, keen on installing a pope who would be sympathetic to their interests. The election of a pope in the Renaissance was far removed from a purely spiritual decision. It was a contest of power, wealth, and influence. Rodrigo Borgia, aware of this, embarked on a campaign of unprecedented scope to secure his election. Rumors of bribery, promises of lucrative positions, and strategic dispensation of his considerable wealth were all tools in his arsenal. The annals of history whispered of the immense sums that changed hands, of the promises made in the shadowy corners of the Vatican, as Rodrigo sought to sway the undecided and secure the loyalty of the cardinals. When the white smoke finally rose from the Sistine Chapel, signalling the election of a new pope, it was Rodrigo Borgia who emerged as the victor. He took the name Alexander VI, a name that would become synonymous with one of the most controversial papacies in the annals of the Church. The reaction to his election was polarized. While some praised the choice, seeing in Alexander a leader capable of navigating the Church through turbulent times, others were appalled, viewing his ascension as the culmination of the corruption that had seeped into the very heart of the Vatican. Alexander's initial policies as pope were aimed at consolidating his power and securing his position. He moved swiftly to appoint relatives to key positions within the Church, an act that, while not unprecedented, was carried out with a brazenness that shocked many. This nepotism was a double-edged sword. It ensured loyalty and control over the Church's vast resources, but it also sowed the seeds of resentment and suspicion among those who viewed the papacy as spiraling into an autocratic dynasty. Among his most controversial decisions was the appointment of his son, Cesare Borgia, as a cardinal. This blatant display of nepotism was emblematic of Alexander's papacy, highlighting the intertwining of family interests with spiritual leadership. Cesare, whose ambitions lay more in the realm of power and conquest than in spiritual matters, became a central figure in the Borgia family's quest for dominance. The beginning of Alexander's reign was marked by lavish celebrations, a testament to the wealth and power of the papacy. But beneath the surface there was disquiet. The moral fabric of the Church was being questioned, not just by its enemies, but by those within its ranks who feared that the spiritual mission of the papacy was being overshadowed by the pursuit of power and wealth. Alexander's reign would come to be defined by these contradictions. A pope who was a patron of the arts and a promoter of the Church's spiritual mission, yet also a figure whose papacy was marked by scandal, intrigue, and the relentless pursuit of power. His coronation was not just the ascension of a man to the spiritual pinnacle of the Christian world. It was a reflection of the times, a period of great change, where the lines between the sacred and the profane were increasingly blurred. The controversy that surrounded Alexander from the moment of his election set the tone for his papacy. He was a figure larger than life, a man who embodied the Renaissance's complexities, its appetite for life, its quest for knowledge, and its unbridled ambition. His coronation marked the beginning of a papacy that would be watched by friends and foes alike, a reign that would be remembered not just for its contributions to the church and the arts, but for the shadows that lingered long after Alexander had passed from the world stage. In the labyrinthine corridors of power that defined Renaissance Italy, the Borgia family weaved a web of influence and intrigue so intricate that its echoes have reverberated through history. At the centre of this web sat Pope Alexander VI, born Rodrigo Borgia, whose papacy was a masterclass in the art of leveraging familial bonds for political gain. The Borgia network was not merely a familial enterprise. It was a strategic endeavour that sought to intertwine the destinies of Europe's most powerful dynasties with that of a single ambitious lineage. The appointment of his son, Cesare Borgia, as a cardinal at the tender age of 18 was but the first stroke in Alexander's grand design. Cesare, a figure of Machiavellian repute, was the Pope's iron fist, embodying the ruthless pursuit of power that characterized the Borgia approach to governance. His sister Lucrezia, renowned for her beauty and intellect, became a pawn in the complex matrimonial chess game played by her father, marrying into influential families that furthered the Borgia cause. Cesare's eventual renunciation of the cardinalate to assume the mantle of a military leader was a move that shocked Christendom. Under the papal banner, he embarked on a campaign of conquest across the Italian peninsula, employing a mix of brute force and cunning diplomacy. His actions laid the foundations for the temporary establishment of a Borgia dominion that stretched from the Romagna to the regions bordering the Republic of Venice. Lucrezia, meanwhile, found herself entangled in the political machinations of her family, her marriages orchestrated to forge alliances or neutralize potential threats. Her union with Giovanni Sforza, Lord of Pesaro, was annulled when he was no longer of use, a move that embroiled the Vatican in scandal. Her subsequent marriages to Alfonso of Aragon and later Alfonso d'Este, Duke of Ferrara, were strategic masterstrokes that secured the Borgias' valuable allies and further integrated them into the highest echelons of Italian nobility. The Borgia children served as the linchpins of Alexander's strategy to cement his family's legacy. Through them, the Borgias infiltrated the aristocracy, gaining leverage over the papal states and beyond. The alliances forged through marriage and the military exploits of Cesare were complemented by a network of loyalists placed within key ecclesiastical and secular positions. This network extended the Borgia influence far beyond the Vatican walls, making them one of the most formidable dynasties of the Renaissance. However, the Borgia network's expansion was not without its detractors. The aggressive consolidation of power by Cesare, often at the expense of Italy's established nobility, bred resentment and fear. Cities and territories that fell under Borgia control experienced the heavy hand of Cesare's administration, which, while effective in maintaining order, was ruthless in quashing opposition. The papacy itself, under Alexander VI, became an object of suspicion among the College of Cardinals, many of whom viewed the Borgia ascendancy with alarm. Amidst the political manoeuvrings, the Borgias were also patrons of the arts, embodying the Renaissance spirit of cultural rebirth. Their court was a haven for artists, poets, and scholars, attracting figures like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. The magnificence of the Vatican during Alexander's reign was a testament to the Borgias' appreciation for beauty and their desire to leave an indelible mark on the cultural landscape of Italy. Yet the brilliance of the Borgia legacy is inextricably intertwined with the darkness of their methods. The use of assassination, bribery, and manipulation to achieve their ends has cast a long shadow over their contributions to the Renaissance. The deaths of political rivals, real or perceived, often under mysterious circumstances, added to the aura of fear and intrigue that surrounded the family. The story of the Borgia network is a captivating saga of power, ambition, and intrigue, woven into the rich tapestry of Renaissance history. It serves as a reminder of the complexities of human nature and the lengths to which individuals will go to secure their legacy and achieve their desires. In the shadows of the Vatican and the palaces of Italy, the Borgias played a game of thrones that would forever mark them as one of history's most enigmatic and controversial dynasties. The papacy of Alexander was a tableau vivant of Renaissance power and decadence, where the sacred and the profane danced in a shadowy embrace. His reign, from the outset, was marred by scandals that threatened to overshadow the spiritual mission of the papacy, casting a long shadow over the Vatican and the broader Christian world. The scandals of Alexander's papacy were not mere whispers in the dark corridors of power, but loud proclamations of a throne mired in earthly desires and ambitions. Alexander ascended to the papal throne amid a flurry of controversy, with rumours of simony, the buying and selling of ecclesiastical offices swirling around his election. These allegations were not unfounded. The papal election of 1492 was a masterclass in political manoeuvring and financial largesse, setting the tone for a papacy that would be continually dogged by accusations of corruption. Yet it was not merely the manner of his ascent that drew ire, but the way in which he wielded his papal authority, using the Vatican as a vehicle for the aggrandizement of the Borgia family. The pontificate of Alexander VI was characterized by an ostentatious display of wealth and power that was unprecedented in the history of the papacy. Among the most salacious tales to emerge from the Borgia Vatican was the infamous banquet of chestnuts, a feast hosted by Cesare Borgia in the papal palace. It was said to have descended into a night of unrestrained debauchery, with courtesans and cardinals alike indulging in acts of lasciviousness, while the Pope looked on. While the veracity of these accounts has been debated by historians, the very existence of such rumours speaks volumes about the moral climate of the Vatican under Alexander. The sexual exploits attributed to Alexander and his children, particularly the allegations of incest between him and his daughter Lucrezia, added another layer of infamy to the Borgia name. These stories, whether fact or fabrication, were seized upon by the Pope's enemies, circulated in pamphlets, and whispered in the halls of power across Europe, further tarnishing the reputation of the papacy. Alexander's penchant for involving himself in the political machinations of the Italian city-states, often to the benefit of the Borgia dominions, was seen by many as a perversion of the papal mission. His alliance with the French king, Charles VIII, inviting the French army to invade Italy, was a strategic move that backfired, leading to a period of instability that would plague the peninsula for years. This meddling in temporal affairs, driven by a desire to expand Borgia influence, was yet another stain on the spiritual authority of the papacy. The scandals that enveloped Alexander's papacy were not merely personal failings, but were indicative of a broader crisis within the Church. The moral decay of the Vatican, embodied by the excesses of the Borgia Pope, reflected the challenges facing a religious institution struggling to maintain its spiritual authority in a rapidly changing world. The corruption, nepotism, and secular ambitions of the papacy under Alexander would ultimately contribute to the clamour for reform that led to the Protestant Reformation. In defence of Alexander, it must be said that his reign was not devoid of merit. He was a patron of the arts, commissioning works from some of the most renowned artists of the Renaissance, and he enacted reforms aimed at improving the administration of the Papal States. Yet these achievements are often overshadowed by the scandals that marked his pontificate, a testament to the enduring power of infamy over legacy. The papacy of Alexander remains a cautionary tale of the dangers of conflating spiritual authority with temporal power. His reign is a mirror reflecting the complexities and contradictions of the Renaissance, a period of great cultural flourishing that was also marked by deep moral and spiritual crises. The scandals of the sacred throne under Alexander are not just historical footnotes. They are reminders of the perennial struggle between virtue and vice, between the aspirations of the soul and the temptations of the flesh. In the intricate tapestry of Renaissance Europe, where the threads of power, ambition, and faith were interwoven, the political landscape was a complex chessboard. At the centre of this grand strategic game sat Pope Alexander VI, whose papacy was defined by an unparalleled mastery of the art of political manoeuvring. His reign, from 1492 to 1503, was a period marked by the relentless pursuit of power, not just within the sacred walls of the Vatican, but across the tumultuous battlefields of Italian city-states and beyond. Alexander inherited a world in flux, where the fragile balance of power among Europe's principalities and kingdoms was perpetually threatened by alliances and enmities. The Italian peninsula, a mosaic of warring city-states, republics and duchies, was the epicenter of this power struggle, with its wealth and strategic importance attracting the covetous eyes of Europe's monarchs. In this volatile environment, the papacy was both a spiritual authority and a temporal power, wielding influence that extended far beyond the spiritual realm. The Pope's strategy was twofold: secure the dominion of the Papal States and elevate the Borgia family to unprecedented heights of power. To achieve these ends, Alexander embarked on a series of alliances and engagements that would draw the Vatican into the very heart of European politics. His children, particularly Caesar and Lucrezia Borgia, were instrumental in this grand strategy, serving as pawns in the diplomatic chess game that their father played with the rulers of France, Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, and the Italian city-states. One of Alexander's most audacious moves was his alliance with France. In 1494, he invited the French king, Charles VIII, to invade Italy, offering papal support for Charles's claim to the throne of Naples. This manoeuvre was intended to realign the balance of power in the peninsula, placing the papacy in a position of strength from which to negotiate with the major European powers. The French invasion, however, unleashed a storm of war that would engulf Italy for decades, a miscalculation that tarnished Alexander's reputation and underscored the risks of his high-stakes diplomacy. In the midst of these tumultuous events, the Borgia Pope skillfully navigated the shifting allegiances and rivalries of Italy's ruling families. He played the Sforza of Milan against the Aragonese rulers of Naples, the powerful Medici of Florence against the Republic of Venice, all while ensuring that the Papal States remained a pivotal force in Italian politics. Cesare Borgia, elevated from cardinal to condottiero, became his father's sword, leading military campaigns that expanded the papal territories and secured the Borgias' place among the most powerful dynasties of the time. Yet the political chessboard on which Alexander played was not without its perils. The very alliances that bolstered the Borgia position also engendered enmity and resentment among those who saw their ambitions thwarted by the Pope's machination. The Orsini and Colonna families, traditional powerhouses in Roman and Italian politics, became implacable foes of the Borgias, leading to a series of bloody conflicts that would stain the cobblestones of Rome and the countryside of the Papal States. The most dramatic testament to the volatile nature of Alexander's alliances was his relationship with the powerful Spanish monarchy. Initially an ally, Spain would become a formidable adversary as the ambitions of the Borgia Pope clashed with the expanding imperial aspirations of Ferdinand and Isabella. The complex dance of diplomacy and conflict with Spain highlighted the challenges Alexander faced in maintaining his family's ascendancy on the European stage. Amidst this web of political intrigue and warfare, Alexander never lost sight of his ultimate goal, the aggrandizement of the Borgia dynasty. Through marriages, treaties, and military conquests, he sought to weave a legacy that would endure beyond his lifetime. The creation of the Duchy of Valentinois for Caesarea and the strategic marital alliances of Lucrezia were pieces in a grand political puzzle that Alexander attempted to solve. However, the very complexity of the political chessboard on which Alexander played would contribute to the undoing of his ambitions. The French invasion that he had facilitated turned Italy into a battleground for foreign powers, undermining the stability he had sought to create. His reliance on Caesar's military prowess proved to be a double-edged sword, as his son's ruthlessness alienated potential allies and stirred up a hornet's nest of resistance among the Italian states. In the end, the political legacy of Alexander was a testament to the perils of overreach. His efforts to manipulate the intricate web of European politics were ultimately undone by the very forces he had sought to control. As the Renaissance dawned over Europe, casting its light on the marvels of human achievement, the shadow of the Borgia papacy loomed large, a reminder of the complex interplay between power, faith, and ambition. Alexander's tenure as Pope was a pivotal chapter in the story of the Vatican, one that would influence the course of history long after the Borgia family had faded from the zenith of power. In the dim corridors of Vatican City, where the echoes of whispered secrets lingered like spectres, the papacy of Alexander was a reign shrouded in the dense fog of conspiracy. The era was a chessboard of shadows, upon which the Borgia patriarch, with his insatiable hunger for power, became both a grand master and a target. His rule, marked by the brilliant strokes of political acumen, was also a time fraught with danger, as plots and schemes unfurled like dark tapestries across the Italian peninsula. The shadows of conspiracy that enveloped Alexander's papacy were not merely the product of paranoid minds. They were real, tangible threats that sought to undermine his authority and topple the Borgia dynasty. Among the most potent of these threats was the conspiracy led by the Orsini family, one of Rome's most powerful clans whose animosity towards the Borgias was a seething cauldron of vengeance waiting to overflow. The Orsini, incensed by Cesare Borgia's aggressive expansionism and the Pope's blatant favoritism towards his offspring, plotted to assassinate Alexander and reclaim their waning influence over the Papal States. The year was 1497, and Rome was a city under siege, not by armies, but by the spectre of treachery. The Orsini conspiracy, a meticulously planned coup, was to be the catalyst for the downfall of the Borgias. The plotters, a cabal of disaffected nobles and cardinals, sought to strike at the heart of the Vatican, aiming to assassinate Alexander during a solemn procession. However, the shadows whispered secrets, and the plot was unveiled before it could be brought to fruition. The conspirators were rounded up, and a swift, merciless justice was meted out. The streets of Rome bore witness to the grim spectacle of executions, a stark reminder of the fate that awaited those who dared to challenge the Borgia throne. Yet the Orsini conspiracy was but one thread in the intricate web of intrigues that ensnared Alexander. His own college of cardinals, a body meant to be the spiritual council of the Pope, was rife with dissent and disloyalty. Among the scarlet-clad princes of the Church, there were those whose ambitions led them down the dark path of conspiracy. The most notorious of these was the plot hatched by Cardinal della Rovere, the future Pope Julius II, who conspired with the French king to depose Alexander. Della Rovera's machinations, fueled by a venomous hatred for the Borgia pontiff, were emblematic of the treacherous terrain upon which papal politics were played. Cesare Borgia, the Pope's son and enforcer, was the shield against the daggers drawn in the dark. His response to the threats against his father and their dynasty was one of brutal efficiency. The infamous purges of the Roman nobility, a campaign of terror designed to root out conspirators and solidify Borgia control, were a testament to his ruthless determination. Cesare, wielding both sword and strategy, became the architect of a reign of fear that ensured the survival of the Borgia legacy, albeit at a steep price. The shadows of conspiracy extended beyond the political to the personal, ensnaring the Borgias in a labyrinth of suspicion and betrayal. The mysterious death of Juan Borgia, Alexander's beloved son, whose body was found in the Tiber, was a tragedy that bore the hallmarks of a sinister plot. Rumours swirled like vultures, with accusations pointing towards Cesare, driven by jealousy and political expediency, as the orchestrator of his brother's demise. The truth of the matter remains buried in the annals of history, a dark mystery that encapsulates the perilous nature of the Borgia family's ascent. Amidst the web of conspiracies, Alexander stood as a figure both revered and reviled, a pope who navigated the treacherous waters of Renaissance politics with unparalleled skill, yet whose legacy would be forever marred by the shadows that clung to his papacy. The conspiracies against him, both thwarted and realized, were reflections of the turbulent era in which he ruled, an age where power was both a shield and a target. In the sultry embrace of an Italian summer, the year of 1503 unfolded as a final act in the dramatic saga of Pope Alexander VI. As August whispered its last, a mysterious illness struck down the man who, as Rodrigo Borgia, had ascended the sacred throne of St. Peter, weaving a narrative so rich and complex it would become the stuff of legend. This enigmatic ailment, which would also afflict his son Cesare, was a sinister prelude to the Pope's sudden demise, a closing chapter that left more questions than answers, forever shrouding his passing in layers of mystery and conjecture. The events leading up to Alexander's death were as convoluted as the plots that had perennially surrounded the Borgia dynasty. The Pope and his son were dining with Cardinal Adriano da Corneto when they were taken ill, stricken by a malady so severe and swift that it left the Vatican and all of Rome in a state of shock and turmoil. Theories abounded. Was it a case of accidental poisoning, a maligned attempt on Cesare's life that tragically claimed his father instead, or was it a deliberate assassination? A final blow aimed at ending the controversial Borgia papacy. Rumours swirled like autumn leaves in a tempest. Some whispered of a poisoned chalice, intended for one of the Pope's many enemies, tragically consumed by Alexander and Cesare themselves. Others speculated on more mundane, albeit no less tragic, explanations. A bout of malaria, or an ill-prepared meal gone awry. Yet, in an era where poison was often the instrument of choice for those seeking to reshape the political landscape, the notion of a deliberate assassination could not be easily dismissed. The Borgia Pope's enemies were legion, and his death was met with a mix of grief, relief, and unabashed jubilation across the Christian world. To his detractors, Alexander's demise was seen as divine retribution, a fitting end for a pontificate marred by accusations of simony, nepotism, and moral corruption. Yet, among his supporters, there was a profound sense of loss, a recognition of the charisma, intelligence, and vision that had characterized his reign. The aftermath of Alexander's death was as tumultuous as his life. The power vacuum left in the wake of his passing unleashed a maelstrom of political manoeuvring as the cardinals convened to elect his successor. Cesare Borgia, weakened by illness and stripped of his father's protection, found his once unassailable position crumbling. The vast network of alliances and territories painstakingly assembled by the Borgias began to unravel as enemies old and new emerged to claim their pound of flesh. The rapid dismantling of the Borgia Empire was a stark testament to the fragility of power. Lands that had been seized through conquest and cunning diplomacy slipped through Caesare's grasp, and the family's fortunes, so closely tied to the papacy, waned with Alexander's passing. The new pope, Pius III, succeeded by Julius II, was no friend of the Borgias, and under their papacies the efforts to erase the Borgia influence from the annals of the Church were both systematic and relentless. Yet even in death Alexander remained a figure of intrigue and fascination. The circumstances of his demise continued to fuel speculation and debate among scholars, historians, and the public. Was it a tragic accident, an inevitable consequence of the dangerous political games he played, or was it the final act of an enemy seeking to rid the world of a pope too embroiled in worldly affairs? His death marked the end of an era, a period in which the Vatican was both a court of unparalleled splendour and a battlefield where the stakes were nothing less than the soul of Christendom. In the annals of history, the Borgia Pope stands as a testament to the enduring allure of power and the perilous path it weaves for those who seek to wield it. The mysterious demise of Alexander serves as a poignant epilogue to the story of a man who, for better or worse, left an indelible mark on the Church and the world. It is a tale that invites reflection on the nature of ambition, the corrupting influence of power, and the inscrutable designs of fate. In the shadows of history, the figure of Rodrigo Borgia, Pope Alexander, remains an enigma, a symbol of the eternal struggle between virtue and vice, between the lofty ideals of the papacy and the all-too-human frailties of those who occupy its sacred throne. As the final echoes of Pope Alexander's reign faded into the annals of history, the world was left to ponder the legacy of a papacy that had captivated, scandalized, and transformed the Vatican and the broader landscape of Renaissance Europe. Rodrigo Borgia, the man who had ascended to the pinnacle of ecclesiastical power, left behind a legacy as complex and multifaceted as the era he helped shape. His papacy, a confluence of ambition, art, and intrigue, continues to provoke fascination, admiration, and revulsion in equal measure. The Borgia Pope's tenure was a period of unprecedented splendor and darkness, a time when the Vatican became a crucible for the forces of beauty and corruption. Alexander's love for the arts heralded a golden age of creativity and innovation, with the pontiff himself becoming a patron of artists, whose work would define the Renaissance. Under his auspices, the Vatican walls whispered of divine beauty, as masterpieces commissioned by the Pope sought to capture the glory of the divine on earth. The legacy of these artistic endeavours, from the majestic frescoes that adorn the Vatican apartments to the architectural marvels that reshaped Rome, endures as a testament to a papacy that valued the sublime power of art. Yet the brilliance of these achievements is shadowed by the scandals that plagued Alexander's reign, the tales of debauchery, intrigue, and murder that are intertwined with the Borgia name have inspired countless works of literature and film. The Borgia legacy is embedded within the cultural consciousness as an emblem of vice and power run amok. The dichotomy of Alexander's papacy serves as a mirror reflecting the complexities of human nature and the challenges inherent in wielding power. His reign, though marked by controversy, was also a period of significant political and territorial consolidation for the papal states, demonstrating his acute administrative and diplomatic acumen. The political machinations and alliances forged by the Borgia Pope with European powers underscored the Vatican's pivotal role in the geopolitical landscape of the Renaissance, influencing the course of history far beyond the confines of the Italian peninsula. However, the most enduring legacy of Alexander's papacy may be its role in precipitating the reform movements that would eventually culminate in the Protestant Reformation. The excesses and moral lapses of the Vatican under his rule became catalysts for calls for reform both within and outside the Church. The desire to purify the Church and return to spiritual basics became intertwined with the broader currents of change that swept through Europe, leading to a re-evaluation of the Church's role in the world and the spiritual lives of its adherents. In the centuries that followed, the figure of Alexander VI has been the subject of both vilification and revisionist appreciation. Historians and scholars have debated the extent of his papacy's corruption, questioning whether Alexander was a product of his times or a singular figure of excess. This re-examination has led to a more nuanced understanding of his tenure, highlighting not only his flaws, but also his contributions to the Church and Renaissance culture. The legacy of Alexander's papacy is a prism through which the lights and shadows of the Renaissance are refracted. It encapsulates the tensions between spiritual ideals and human frailties, between the quest for beauty and the lure of power. As the world moved forward from the tumultuous era of the Borgias, the lessons of Alexander's reign remained etched in the collective memory of Christendom, a cautionary tale of the dangers of allowing the temporal to overshadow the eternal. The papacy of Alexander VI stands as a complex monument in the history of the Vatican and the world. It is a story of a man who reached the heights of power in an age of unparalleled beauty and profound corruption, leaving a legacy that continues to both enlighten and warn. The Borgia Pope's life and reign, enveloped in the mists of myth and history, remain a fascinating exploration of the human saga. An enduring narrative of ambition, art, and the indomitable spirit of an era that forever changed the course of Western civilization.